so you need to have your lunch, then you go to a restaurant. So you will check the menu because the menu has everything which the restaurant can offer. So if you go and ask for something which is not in the menu, so they can't provide it. I will ask the waiter. So I want a chicken burger and some French fries and a drink. So we didn't go to the kitchen and ask the chef to prepare a burger. We asked the waiter. So he will take it down and then he will go to the kitchen. And again, maybe they have different their numbers or something for a chicken burger in their kitchen. They will be referring a different term. Okay, let's say if we have numbers, okay, number 20 for the chicken burger likewise. So that is their communication method, their convention. But it is not understandable for us, for the client. So that's why we had the menu with the plain English, saying the chicken burger. So I will order as chicken burger from the waiter. He will go to the kitchen and then he will ask the chef to prepare the order. We didn't go to the kitchen or we didn't ask chef to be present, anything. Right? Hello my dear friends, welcome back to QV Bro. So as usual, on another Friday I'm back with another video. I hope you guys got a chance to go through the last video and hope you guys completed at least a couple of certifications from the 5 which I shared. So didn't get the chance, then try to finish those at least this week. And also don't forget to share your update on the channel as a comment. You can put it as a comment on the video. So I know that you guys have completed the certifications and you guys are now certified with Lambda test and browser stack with the compatibility testing. So I am so happy if you guys got certified on these things and if you guys get your progress on your career path. So from this week, we are going to start a new video or a new playlist. The last 3 playlists were mainly related to compatibility testing, non-functional testing. So thought of going back to functional parts. So this time we are going to discuss about API testing. So this might be a bit a long playlist because there are different things which we need to discuss under the API testing. So from today's video, I will give the introduction to APIs and about the different components and those stuff. So because without the basic understanding about the API, there is no point of going into these API testing and tools or technologies. So today we can lay the foundation for the APIs and then from next week onwards we can see how we can use these different tools and technologies for our API testing purposes. So then from next week onwards we can see some of available free tools for API testing and also for automation some available technologies. I will keep about only these things for the time being because there are so many things in my plan to be covered under the API testing playlist. So let's start today's video. I will start as usually with the definition for the APIs, but I will come again at later point for this particular definition once we discuss about the APIs and when we have a clear understanding about what APIs are, then we can go and see whether this definition and our understanding is on the same page or not. Okay. So when it comes to APIs, before discussing about the APIs, let's just imagine one of your websites or one of your products you have worked, right? So there are mainly a UI will be there. Or else let's think about the Facebook. So you go to the Facebook homepage, then you will see all the posts shared by your friends and also which are published from different pages you followed likewise. So these things will be displayed on your home feed once you go to the home, or if you refresh, those things will be loaded, or when you scroll down, the new things will be loaded at the bottom likewise. So how these things know now it's the time for you to show these things. Or else let's say if you want to post something, you go and upload or type something, and once you click on the post button, so that will be shared on your feed and your profile, and also your friends can see that at the same time. So how these things are happening, it's kind of a magic, right? So once you do something here, everyone around the globe can see these things. And how when you click just one button, how this thing got published and updated everywhere. So all these things will be happening with APIs. So, and also maybe you have seen this Google Maps now used mostly by other third parties as well. For example, like when you want to book something, or when you need to find location, or when you open some applications, they will be asking for your location, and most of the times you might see they are using this existing Google Maps without creating their own maps. They can use the available Google Maps. So how these things are happening? How was it possible? So the answer for all this is the APIs. So when it either via a UI, via another component, or via another third-party tool, so all these things were possible because of the APIs. So the things which I mentioned, like the UI or another third-party tool, all these things we can name as the client because they are the ones who request the particular service. Okay, let's take the example of the Google Maps again. Okay, I have, let's say, I develop my own application, and then for my particular application I need to use these map services to find the location or something. So in that case, the Google Maps API is available publicly, so you can use that with your application. So your application is the client, and then from your client application, let's say we have the particular icon where you need to click, then the map will be launched. So I will go and click on the particular icon on my application. Then, so that is the client initiating the particular request. So client is my mobile application, and then I initiated the request. So the Google APIs which I am using, and then it will be, the request will be sent into the servers. So server is the backend. So the Google servers, the map servers. So they will check the particular request, and because when Google publishing the services, they have shared like what are the accepted the format. I will come to the technical terms later. Now I will use these terms. So they let's say the contract, like agreed contract, which we need to follow in order to access the particular server, the Google services. They have published it. So then we will go through the documentation, and okay, now we know, okay, what are the endpoints, or like what are the services they offer, and what are the different parameters or the things which we need to share with them in order to get the response of their services, and if there is any authorization thing happening, so how can I do that? All those things I can check from the documentation. So they have published it. So based on following all these contracts, I will send the request via the API to the map server. So then they will check the particular request, and based on the asked request and the stuff, they will create the response, and they will again share it to the client. That is again my mobile application. So that is basically what is happening with the API. So to get more clear understanding about the API, so let's think of a scenario related to a hotel or a restaurant. So I got this particular image from the Postman. Here is the URL for the particular page, because I think it's like it will be more clear in these terms. So let's say you go to a particular restaurant, right? So you need to have your lunch, then you go to a restaurant, and then now you need to order something. So how you order? So you will check the menu, because the menu has everything which the restaurant can offer. So if you go and ask for something which is not in the menu, so they can't provide it. So that's like the contract which I mentioned. So once the Google Maps, they publish their services, they publish the particular documentation, the contract as well. So as clients, we can go through those documentations, and then we can understand, okay, what are the services they provide, and what, as I mentioned again, what are the parameters and everything which I need to present to get a success response. So that is similar to the menu. Let's say after checking the menu, I thought of like having a burger. So I will order a burger, a chicken burger, let's say. So a chicken burger. So then I will ask the waiter. So I want a chicken burger and some French fries and a drink. So we didn't go to the kitchen and ask the chef to prepare a burger. Right? We asked the waiter. So he will take it down. and then he will go to the kitchen. And again, maybe they have different their numbers or something for a chicken burger in their kitchen. They will be referring a different term. Okay, let's say if we have numbers, okay, number 20 for the chicken burger, likewise. So that is their communication method, their convention. But it is not understandable for us, for the client. So that's why we had the menu with the plain English, saying the chicken burger. So I will order as chicken burger from the waiter. He will go to the kitchen and then he will ask the chef to prepare the order. We didn't go to the kitchen, or we didn't ask chef to be present, anything, right? So API was our helper there. Oh, sorry, the waiter. Yeah, the waiter was our helper. So waiter was able to communicate with us and with also the server. And he is the kind of the middle layer who provide this the user friendly interface for the client and also communication with the server. Then once the food is ready, waiter will go to the kitchen and he will bring our food and he will give it us. Neither we went to the kitchen nor the chef came here. So the client and server. So now let's try to map these terms with our technical terms here. So we who went to the restaurant are the client. The waiter who was going back and forth between the client and the kitchen, or the is the API here. The waiter is the API. And as I mentioned, menu is the contract. And then we have the server. The kitchen is the server. So every time client initiate a request, API request, it will go to the server and then server check it and it will provide the response to the client back. So API is the middle layer here between the client and the server, which allows us to communicate between the server, not directly. So then API provides all these features for us. So that's why API testing is also important. Otherwise, because API is the one which opens to the public, so to allow Win to access the features which can be provided through the server. Okay, now let's go to the definition. So the definition says an API, which stands for Application Programming Interface, is a set of protocols that enable different software components to communicate and transfer data. It's correct, right? So now we saw all these things from here. So we saw that it enabled different components, the clients, servers, and also there are different clients. It could be a UI or another third party, there are different clients. However, which enable different software components to communicate and to transfer data. So you saw so we can communicate with requests and response. With those request response, we can transfer data as well. The only thing which we didn't say is the protocol part. So what is a protocol? It's kind of the contract, let's say. So we need to agree between the client and server, there should be, so let's say I'm a tourist, I go to a foreign country. Now I can't communicate with the people there because, let's say I go to China. I don't know Chinese and I met a Chinese person. So he will talk in Chinese and I'm trying to talk in, let's say, my own language. And then we are in struggle because he don't understand my native language and I can't understand his native language. So that's where a protocol means, now we agree, both the parties agreed to use a common language. Let's say English. Both of us know English. So then we can communicate using English. Now I understand what he says and also same, he understands what I say. So that is what a common language will allow us to do. So the same thing will be available with the protocols as well. So a protocol, it's kind of agreed things between the two parties in order to, before communication starts. So once the protocol is published, so they know this particular protocol which we need to use. For example, if we are working on the web, we will use HTTP or HTTPS. So that's the protocol. So using HTTP, we know that we can transfer data and also we can publish those things as HTML on the web. So that's the protocol. So when some data comes in with the HTTP protocol, now since we have already agreed between what protocol we will use, so now based on the particular protocol, those rules, regulations, and the stuff they have agreed, the standards, we will follow those standards, the client. Same way, the server will also follow the same standards. Now we are on a mutual agreement to follow the same standard set. So now easily client and server can communicate without any further changes need to be done. So that's a protocol. So again, let's go through the definition. So API is a set of protocols. Okay, it's correct, right? Because I mentioned also that when the similar to the menu. So the menu is published likewise. So the server will publish like what is the protocol they will use and all those information as well. Now the client can go through those standards and know, and they can develop their client side based on these standards following the same. So now once the response is received without any further chaos, the client side will be supports the response received from the server. So that's what a protocol will do, a mutual agreement between the two parties. Okay, so now I hope everything is clear what is an API. With those understanding, now we can go to the next level. Okay, so in the API I mentioned that. So the main things here, the client, API, and the server, now you know. And here we have the request and the response. Okay, the request and response, let's say, okay, let's like go back to the past where we like used to write letters. Okay, I will write a letter and I put the address and then I will post it. Okay, now the postman will check the address and then he will take it and he will hand over to the receiver. Then they will read the letter, and based on the letter, let's say we are asking for something or something, then based on the letter request, they will write the reply letter and they will again post. So now they can post it because on my letter I have mentioned my address. So then they will put that particular address and they will post the letter. Then again the postman will take the response to me. So now let's try to map the same thing here. So the client is me who write the first letter. So the request is on the letter. So here the API is the postman, let's say, and he will take it to the server. So this is the receiver. He will check my letter and he will write the reply. Then again he will post it. Again the postman will take it to me. This is the response letter. So the request and response here is like the letter, which carries the data between the client and the server. So it embedded all the, it had the address details and any salutation and all those stuff if we have in the letter. And then the content, the body of the letter. And then, with thank or anything. And then if it had any attachments or something, all those things were contained in this particular letter, the request. Same way, the response will also have the same things. The reply to my request, any attachments if there, and the address details, everything is on the response as well. So the request and response. Now, let's check what is the request and response in the API code. Same way. So when the client initiates the request, okay, the request will be initiated from the client. Then request will go to the server, and then server initiate the response, reply back with the response. Then the first one is the request, which goes to server from the client. It should have the endpoint. Endpoint means the address. Same way, when we write the letter, we write the receiver's name and the address. So then the postman can easily find out who is the receiver. Otherwise, if we didn't write the name and the address, and if we post it, now the postman will get the letter. Now he don't know to whom should I share this. Similarly, there should be the particular endpoint of the service. I will come to the more detailed about endpoint in the next slides. So that's the endpoint, means the location or the address of the server and the particular service. Endpoint is not enough. We need to mention the method as well. Method again, like if we are using HTTP, there are some HTTP methods which are commonly used. So I will come back to later again. Then on the request, we need to mention the headers. So headers are like some metadata for the server. Maybe if server is asking for some authorization, authentication, so those tokens, the username, password, those values also can be shared in the header. Other than that, like some other metadata which will be useful for the server to identify the client and also to identify the data of the body and also to create the response. So those things we can share in the header. And then we have the body. Yeah, the body means like the letter content. The request body will have all the details, like all the data which we need to send on the request. So that is the request body. So those are like the main items on a request. We have the endpoint, then we have what is the method, and then we have the headers and the body. Then we have the response. Okay, now when we send a request with all these details to the server, now server will check the request, and then it will check the headers and it will check the body, and based on the method, now the server knows what it need to do, whether it need to send some data back to the client, or does it need to update it on its server side on server databases. Likewise, it knows whether it need to delete, or likewise, based on the method, now the server know what is the action need to be done. Okay, now it will check all these things, and then it will generate the response, and the response will be now sent from the server to the client. So the particular response will have a status code, a code which will be a standard. Again, there are standard HTTP codes based on the type or based on the result. So it will send the particular status code. So using the code, even without checking the body and stuff, by simply looking at the status code, client will be able to know what happened to the request, whether the request was successful, whether the request was failed, or any other action need to be taken from the client side. Likewise, those information can be understood by the client based on the status code. So the status code will be present. And then similar to the request, response will also have the headers and the body as well. The response doesn't have a method because it's not asking client to do any actions, because it present the thing, present the reply, and the endpoint, again, it's the client URL or the client's address. So those are the things which will be present on the response. Okay, now with those things in mind, now let's see what the endpoint is. I mentioned the endpoint is the address of the server. Okay, but the endpoint will have different components. Let's say, yeah, the URL. You when you want to visit a website, if you want to go to Facebook, you will type facebook.com. But if you check on the URL bar, there will be other parts which will be automatically added as well. It will added as like https www.facebook.com. Then if you go to profile or somewhere, maybe it might add /profile. Likewise, there will be different parts adding to the URL based on the location or the service. Likewise, so endpoint is actually your address. So let's say for your home, you have address, you have a home number, then there will be street name, and then for your area, and then the city, then the country. Likewise, your address will have different parts. Similarly, the URL will also have same way. Okay, so let's say starting like this, QEBro, then QEBro.pro is, it's our website, and then let's say video search, and you might have seen these question marks. If especially like let's say you go to Google and you for search something, then check the URL bar, it will have this question mark, and then these parts with the equal mark, and it will have what you type. So yeah, now let's see what all these parts mean. It starts with the HTTPS. Sometimes you have seen HTTP or sometimes HTTPS. So this is the protocol. Remember, this is the agreed standard between the client and the server. HTTPS means it's secure using SSL. If you go only HTTP, then when the request is going between the client and server, any intermediary can interpret the message, or they can do a man in the middle attack. So yeah, I will discuss about these things later in the security playlist. But however, if you use in HTTP, it's not encrypted. So okay, let's say when you write the letter and you post it, once the postman is taking, someone can take it from the postman, and then they also can read the letter. And if they want, they can modify your letter or do something, and then they can put again, and then they can hand it over to your receiver as that's the original one. But now it is interpreted or manipulated. Now the actual receiver will see a manipulated message, not the actual one which I sent. So the same thing can be done on this HTTP as well. Someone can interpret your messages. So it's not secure. If you are sending this authorization thing, and then they can take those details and they can pretend to be you. So that's not secure. So that's why HTTPS is there. Hypertext Transfer Protocol for HTTP and secure for HTTPS. So it is secured using SSL. Now they are building a secure tunnel between the client and the server before the data transfer starts. Now the tunnel is secured. Now no one can interpret there. And now you send encrypted data there. So even though, let's say, someone tried to break it and take the message, but still they will not be able to understand your message because the message is encrypted. So no point. So that's why HTTPS is used. It is secure. Okay. Some brief detail about the security part. However, so this HTTPS is the protocol. And also this HTTPS will be used for the web things. And then let's say file transfer. If you are doing a file transfer, you will see FTP. And if you are doing a mail, then you will see SMTP. Likewise, there are different protocols based on the different services which we will use on the internet. However, after the protocol part, now we have the website name. This is the common thing you have seen: www.facebook.com, www.google.com, or based on your country, Google. Then if you are from UK, Google.uk. If you are from India, Google.in. Likewise, it will vary. And also you might have seen .org, and here in my case it's .pro. Likewise, it will vary. However, so now here the three parts are like www part is the subdomain. If you are on the internet, it is World Wide Web. It's the subdomain for internet part, and then you have the domain or your organization name, QEBro. So you can register your domain with these DNS providers with any name you like. So that is your domain to identify your organization. QEBro in my case is the domain. And then we have the letter part. For my case it's .pro. For others it could be .com. For countries .uk, .in, likewise, or .org. Likewise. So that is the top level domain. Top level domain can be used to identify what kind of organization is this. So if you are using a country name like UK, IN, so then it's easy to identify from which country. Or else if you are using .org, that is organization. If you use .edu, that is for educational institution. So .pro, likewise, it's vague. So however, the whole part is the domain. Here, subdomain, domain, and the top level domain. The next three part of my endpoint. Then we have the port. But you might have not seen this port in the popular services like Facebook or anything. You will not see the port. But when you do, let's say, development work and stuff, then you will have to work with the port. So that's why I included this. So however, the port is also a part of the endpoint. So port, okay, let's say the server will be providing many services, not only one service. So the ports will be used to open these different services. So the port means the computers, they will be working with these ports, IP and the port. So these different ports will be allocated for different services. For example, let's say MySQL is running on port 3306. HTTP will be running on port 80. HTTPS running on port 443. FTP will be running on another port. Likewise, there are standard ports for different services as well. Or else, you can give some user-defined customized ports as well. So, why you don't see this 443 or 80 is like, since they are using the standard ports for HTTP port 80, HTTPS port 443. So, in that case, no need to give the port here. Otherwise, if you are using a customized port, let's say 1234, in that case, you need to use the particular port address here. And also then, okay, so however, the port is also a part of the endpoint. And then you will see the path, the video search, likewise. facebook.com/profile. Likewise, after the particular domain, we add a slash and then we give some content. So this is the path to the particular resource which we need to access, particular the service. Okay, if you give facebook.com/profile, so that means the profile. So in most of the websites or company websites, /careers will be for the jobs page. Likewise. So that is the path to the particular resource. So here in my example, I have given as video/search. So that's the path to the resource. Then you will see this question mark. So from this question mark, now it knows after the question mark will be the key value pairs. So this is the question mark to like identify the location from where it need to break this particular the term into two parts. From here we can break. And then now this part will have the key value pairs. So this is in that case the query string operator. And then what are these query string parameters? The key value pairs. If you want to, so in this case in my example, so I gave the example of like searching a video in my web page. So for the search in the video, I need to pass the video ID and the language, let's say. Or let's say for the time being only the ID. So each video will have IDs like 1, 2. Likewise, so if I pass with the video, so if I go to video search, all the videos will load. But if I pass with this query string operator and the query string key value pairs, so then it will search only for this particular video and it will give. So these query string parameters will be used to do that, like to search or to provide some specific data to the server. So now it knows using this query string part the key value pair. So they will break into that and they will take these values. However, these keys are on the particular mutual agreement or on their API documentation. Like what are the available parameters which you can use for the client. Okay, so then after the question mark, as I mentioned, we have the key value pairs. There could be multiple pairs as well. Those multiple pairs can be differentiated using this ampersand sign. So this is first pair, this is the second pair. Now the key is this one and the value is this one. So key value you can give using the equal sign. Key 1, value 1, key 2, value 2. Likewise. So that is the query strings. Then the final part, in some web pages when you go to, okay, now let's say we go to a portfolio, a website, and then we click on different sections. The section will be come to the top of the page, and then URL will have this particular fragment part saying hashtag, and after that there will be ID. So that is like for the particular sections. So either you can go directly using the URL with the particular fragment. In that case, the particular the section will be on the top of the page. If you give without the fragment, like the top of the website will be loaded on the top of the browser. If you give it the fragment, so let's say in the middle section, so the particular middle section will be loaded as the scrolled up to there and it will be loaded. So that is why these fragments are used for identifying different sections on your web page. Okay, I hope the endpoint is clear for you now. And now next part is about the methods. Okay, now again back. So in the request and response, we mentioned that the endpoint is there. So we discussed it now. I hope it's clear. Then the next part is on the request, we have the methods. So I mentioned that HTTP have, and yeah, HTTP, HTTPS both, because HTTPS different is like it is secured using the SSL. However, HTTP have some common methods which can be used for asking the server to do different things. So the mostly used ones are these get, post, put, patch, and delete. All like most of the APIs will allow you to do these operations with their services. Other than that, we have head, connect, options, trace as well. These things are mostly like to either to get some information or likewise, but these things which can be used to do some operations. Okay, let's say like this particular example. I send this particular request to get the particular video with the ID 123 in the English language one. For such kind of thing, here I'm requesting some data from the server. So the server will search for this particular query parameters using, and then it will get the particular video and it will send. So in that case, I am requesting the server to send some data. In such scenario, I can use the get method. So this particular endpoint, the HTTP method can be the get. But let's say if I'm creating, so in the Facebook scenario, I want to create a post. Not this post, I mean, like I want to publish some data there. So in that case, I send those details in my body and I ask Facebook to publish these things. So that means they need to save it on their databases. So for such scenario, I can use the post request. Post request can be used to create a new object. So get was to retrieve the resource and post is to create the resource. Then we have the put and the patch. The difference between put and patch is like if you use the put request, it will replace the existing resource. So in that case, okay, let's say when you create in the post, so the body, it should have, let's say, okay, who published it, and then the content, and then let's say the timestamp, and yeah, let's say those are the three parameters which we need to send. Who created, what is the post, and what is the type. So if you use the put request, you need to send all these three parameters, and existing resource will be totally replaced with the current one. But if you use the patch request, you can send only one parameter. Let's say you need to change only the data. The created and the date is same. You don't need to update those two parameters. You need to update only the content parameter. So you can send only the content parameter. So in that case, not a whole replace will be done. Only the particular parameter will be updated. So that is the difference between the put and patch. Put will be used to totally replace the existing resource, and patch will be used to patch, update a specific part of the existing resource. Then delete, as its name says, if you want to delete a resource fully, then you can use the delete method. Other than that, if you want, so the get and head are like similar, but with the get request, you request data. But with the head, you request only the metadata, not the actual content. So here, the same thing, if you use in a get, you will receive the video. But if you use a head request, you will not receive the video, but you will receive some only metadata as the header values. And then connect, options, trace or some other available HTTP methods as well. Okay, then again go back. Now we know what is the endpoint, what are the methods, and then we have the request headers, and also we have the response headers as well. The headers are like to, as I mentioned, if you want to send some metadata to server and also to the client. There are some header values which will be sent on the client request, and also there are some header values which will be sent on the response as well. So using these headers, first they will check on the header. Then using the header, they can identify like, okay, they using this metadata about some information about the particular, the body data, and also authorization parameters, everything will be sent there. Okay, so some of the most commonly used HTTP headers are like the accept, content type, cache control, server, user agent, authorization, cookie, and the content link. So it will send like this. So again, like kind of a key value pair. Here the key value pairs are separated using the colon. In the URL, key value pairs are separated using the equal, here colon, and also multiple headers can be present. In that case, all the new header, each line will be on a new line. There will be a carriage return and a new line for a new header. So using that, they can identify or differentiate between different headers. Okay, however, so the accept parameter says, so when the client send the request, it send like what type which the client can accept, whether JSON can be accepted or only HTML likewise. Okay, so now the server, once it receives the request, it will check for these headers, and once it see this particular header value, okay, now it knows client can accept only JSON or HTML. So now the server will format its response to these acceptable accepted formats and then send the response. So since this is accepting JSON, it will not send the XML because client will not be able to process with data. So now the server knows. So then it will send JSON. Similarly, content type. Content type and the accept is difference is like content type means when client send the request, it says my current content type is in JSON format. Client request body. The accept means what I can accept. So this is like the sender's format and this is what it can receive, the receiving format. So that's the difference between accept and the content type. This content type will be there on the response header as well. On the response also, the server will say my content type is in application JSON. So now once the client receive the response and when it check the content type, now it knows, okay, the body is in JSON, so I need to use a JSON format, or I need to format this in the JSON. Then it will also have the cache control. So when you create this request response, we share this about the caching. Caching mechanism is there. So this is like the max age of the cache. Those information will also be some metadata. And also once on the response, there will be this server. So now client knows what is the server in use, like Apache and what is the version, those things. And also user agent is for the client side. So the browser and those details will be there. So in that case, server knows how this request was initiated, from which browser and version. Those information will be the user agent. And also, as I mentioned, we can pass these authorization parameters, some JWT tokens. Other than that, this username, password. So based on agreed authorization mechanism, those data will be there. And also cookie and the content length will be there. Content length means like the size of the particular content. Okay, so those are the mostly used HTTP headers and request and the response. Then we have the status codes. I mentioned that once the server is done with the particular action, then it will send the response. When they send the response, they will send a code, header and the body. So header and body we saw, the code is here. So using this particular status codes, these are like agreed HTTP standard codes are there. Using these standard codes, once the response is received at the client side, even without checking the header and the body, if the correct codes are used, client can know what has happened to his request. So there are different ranges, like this 100 range is for informational response, 200 range for success response, 300 range for redirections, 400 for client errors, and 500 for the server errors. For example, you will see like 100, 101, 105 likewise. So if any of these status codes are in the 100 range, so that means from 100 to 199. If these are in this particular range, that means like the server is giving some informations for the client. If it is in the 200 range, from 200 to 299, 200 is the mostly used on success. If the client request was successful, then it will send 200 OK. So yeah, client sending the GET request to retrieve data. Response is created with the particular retrieved data, and it will send in a 200 OK. Now when client see the 200 OK, now it knows in the response body, it will have the actual data. 201 is for created. When we send a request with this post request to create a new resource, and if the particular request was successful, then server will reply with 201. So now client knows once it sees this 201 response, okay, the particular resource has been created, and yeah, it will have some optional the body parameters as well. Likewise 202, 204, likewise there are different range, different status codes in the 200 range. However, this 200 range is success. That means like the client request was successful and now the response is sent. Then we have the 300 range, redirections. Maybe the endpoint has changed. Client has used the old endpoint and it's come to the server. Now the server identifies this particular endpoint is not in use and now it has been updated to a different endpoint. So now this particular request need to be redirected. So in that case, response will contain the 300 range value and it will ask client to use the new endpoint to redirect. Similarly, 400 range. So let's say client is sending the request without this authorization parameter. So now it will fail at the server because it can't authorize. So then it will send a request with the 400 range not authorized. So now client knows. Similarly, not found if there is no such endpoint. And also, let's say, okay, and then the client request is sent without some mandatory parameters. So in that case, again a 400 error because the error is with the client side on the client request. So client need to fix that particular error and send a new request. So that's why we send a status code in the 400 range. Then the 500 range means the error is on the server side. Client has nothing to do due to some maybe technical fault or unavailability of resources. The server couldn't handle the response. So in that case, but still we need to give some update to the client, otherwise he will be waiting. So we give the response with the 500 range status code. Now client knows, okay, there's nothing to be worried from my side. My request had all the necessary details, authorization, everything is okay. But the issue is with the server side. If it is like due to the performance issues, maybe you can retry it later. So that's why the 500 range is there. Okay, the server errors, all these things will have these 500 range error status codes. I hope it was clear. So then, yeah, I have some examples and I will use one of these available free APIs. So this Bceptor is one such website where you can create your own mock servers. That means like your own mock API, or you can use existing APIs for free, and some pricing information is also there. You can get some other services as well, but I will currently use only these free services. So under free tools, you can see either ready to use mock servers, or here you can create your own API. I will use one of these ready to use mock servers, and here there are different available APIs. Let's say I will go with currently I will use this JSON REST API. Okay, here you can see all the endpoints. So here also you can see how it works. And let's say, okay, now since you know about the endpoint, let's try to create. Okay, now you can see it has HTTPS, the protocol, then app, then the Bceptor is the domain, and yeah, it's .com, top level domain. And then it has the path mock server / dummy JSON, then the particular endpoint for this particular. So these are different other services. So many services are provided, like so many endpoints are there. So we can use one of endpoints. Let's say this endpoint. To call this particular endpoints, you need to call / then post. So that is the endpoint. No need to send any body. So request headers, no need. Request body, no need. And the type is a GET request. So if you put this on your browser URL, and if you hit the enter, this will send a GET request. And then okay. Now we had, I think here it should work. You are looking for a page nowhere to be found. Okay, so currently like this particular endpoint is not working. They have removed it. So it was good because you could see a 400 error code as well, 404, page not found. And if you can remember, 400 range is for the client side errors. And let's say if I go to the network, I will go to the inspect. Okay, however, like now what I wanted to show is like I want to go to the network panel. And I will clear those things and I will refresh. Okay. Now you see this is the particular request which I sent. Okay, here you can see the endpoint is there. And what is the request method? It's a GET request. And the request headers are there. It's sending key value pairs, authority, method, path, what is the scheme of the protocol, what can be accepted, the accepted parameters. Likewise, all these information are there. And then we have the response headers. For the response status code was a 404. And what was the response headers? Those things are there. And the response body contains HTML. So those things. So these are the things which we discussed about the request and the response. So all those things are there. However, now let's see like why it didn't work. Mock server, dummy JSON post. So it should be okay. So here I use this particular URL now. this is what the URL which I need to use. Okay, I will use this and then /posts. If I use this one, now it should work. Okay, now you can see it responds back with me all the resources, all the posts, because I asked for the posts. So the response had all the posts. So again, let's go to the inspect network and let's retry it. Okay, now if you check the posts, here is my request and you can see the status code was at 200. So that means 200 range means the success response. 200, okay. Okay, so the endpoint is there. Request method was a get, and then the request headers are there as usual. And then the response status code is a 200, and the response headers are there, and the body is also there. So that's how you can work with these APIs. Then the posts. Then let's try with another endpoint. Here they have posts. If you pass a post ID, so here if I ask for posts, it return me all the available posts. But if I send the request with one of these IDs, it should send only that particular post without sending all the posts. So, so now you can see I got the particular posts. Other than that, you can see there are a lot other endpoints which are available with this particular API, which you can use. All are with get method. So that means to retrieve data from the server. So however, I hope those things were clear. I will talk about these things later from the next week when we start with the API testing. So I hope from today's video, like you got the idea about like what API is and what is happening behind all these things and all these technical terms and everything. Then from next week, we can start the API testing. And again, when we come to the API testing, there will be different types of testing and also different methods how you can perform API testing. It's similar to like, previously we were discussing about functional testing. Yeah, it was like on the UI we were doing. Same way, API testing also kind of we can do both functional and unfunctional, because without UI, now we are directly accessing the API. In some cases, there can be public APIs or private APIs. Private API means within the organization, within our different components we will use. But some other cases, there could be some public APIs, like in the social media, so Google Maps. Likewise, some other third parties also can use our APIs. So in such cases, non-functional testing is a must, because there could be security concerns as well, because we are opening the outside people to access our own service through these APIs. So in that case, security is a must. And also, we need to support performance as well. Otherwise, when we receive multiple API calls, our service will not be able to handle it. So, okay. These things like, the performance testing you can do using the UI as well. Like initiating the call from the UI, or else you can directly initiate the API. So it will be more time saving, because it will allow you to make it more stable. Because like if you were doing this, the performance testing from the UI side, if UI was not loaded due to some reasons, network issues or something, then your performance test will also fail. But if you initiate this performance test using these API calls, so it will be more stable and more efficient as well. You can actually test the bottlenecks on your server. No need to like check on the UI sites, because the UI is loading on the browser. That can be done separately. But now in a performance test, what we need to test is the server side. So you can do the performance testing using these API calls. Other than that, similarly you can do unit testing as well. So in unit testing, we will different APIs will be tested separately, whether it will giving the accepted responses based on the past requests, and also the contract testing. These days it's becoming popular. The contract testing is so like if we do either any change, but still the contracts, the request response won't need to not to be changed. Those things can be tested using the contract testing. Other than that, the functional testing we can do. So those are the things which we'll be discussing in the next weeks. And also, as I mentioned, non-functional testing can be done. And also we can do some E2E or the integration testing as well. So what is this E2E or integration for the APIs? Let's say if there are kind of API chain. So first we will call one API, and then based on the particular response, we have to call another API. Likewise, the full flow. That is the end-to-end or the integration with the APIs. And also, if we do some integrations with other third parties or anything, those testing can be done. And those are like different types of testing which we can perform on the APIs. And also, you can do this manual testing and automation testing. That's, that is like the method or how you perform the type of these different testing. For example, like the functional testing, you can do either manually or automated. For example, like you can use a tool like Postman. The Postman support both manual and automation. Let's say using such tool, you can manually put this data and click on the send request button, and then once you get the response, you can do like that. Or else you can use this REST assured or some other technologies and automate those things as well. So likewise, you can either do manual or automation test. Don't worry, I will cover all these things in our future videos under this particular playlist. So okay, hope everything was clear. Yeah, it was a bit long video, but I wanted to lay the full foundation for you guys for the APIs. So now you know all the basics and the foundation things, and now without any hesitation, we can start from next video, the API testing part. Since now you have a good understanding about what API is, so your test design and test planning, everything can be done smoothly, and you can start with the testing part. So I hope everything was clear. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate. You can ask me anytime. Either drop a mail at qvbro.pro@gmail.com, or else you can ask in the comment section as well. I'm really happy to help everyone. Okay, so let's stop from here for today. And next video, we can start on the API testing. Happy testing. See you.